Oh, happy day to you. I am Jen Yates, the generator. You're locked on Jyneration Nation, LRS102.com. It is my birthday, of all things, and I'm so excited. Yay. For many reasons. I have Carrie Neumayer up in the LRS studios. How are you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Man, there's nothing like social media to make you feel so loved on your birthday, because it's just like you have 400 people posting on your wall today saying happy birthday. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I'm so pumped to have you in here. I've been trying to get you in here for a long time. I was first turned on to you by an old landlord. I love to tell this story. Sina Jeter Naslin, because she was one of the coolest people I had ever met. And I rented a house from her, and I actually got to stay in the room where she wrote her first big bestseller, Ahab's Wife. And she had all these cool bookshelves in the walls and just really cool place. So anyway, she would tell me a lot about this friend she had that played music, and it was always you. But I never got to meet you. That was early 2000s. And we literally just got to meet this year.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
That is.
Yes.
Yeah, she's an amazing person.
She is, and an amazing writer, too. I'm a huge fan of hers, and such a beautiful soul. Right,
yes,
on this earth. Yes, I love her dearly. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, and I want to also start off by asking you about LRS. Do you have any affiliation with LRS? Growing up, did you ever listen to LRS? Were you aware of the radio station?
You know, growing up, I was an orchestra nerd, and I didn't really listen to the radio much. I just played violin.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you played music. You know, the guy on yesterday said the same thing. When I asked him, growing up, what kind of music he listened to, he said, we didn't listen to music in my household. He played music.
We listened, I mean, my dad loved classic rock, and so I listened to a lot of that growing up, but I don't know. We just didn't listen to the radio all that much.
Well, welcome to LRS.
Thank you.
We've been around since 1964, one of the primary rock and roll stations in Louisville, Kentucky, famously known for the Walrus, and also the homemade records. Back in the day, they would make homemade vinyl records, LRS 102, and they would take local artists and have them record on them. Right here, this was the first one they ever did, which is the homemade chicken pie record, basically, or we don't know what kind of pie it is, but on the back there's a song about waiting for that chicken pie to cool. So we're going to try to bring these back because I love this idea. You take local artists, have them write a song, and then you put out a homemade vinyl record and sell it to the community.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start by talking about, first off, how did you get your start in music? Obviously, we know you were an orchestra nerd.
Yes.
You started on violin.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And is that, do you still play violin today?
I have rented a violin recently.
Okay.
I hadn't played probably since I was like 18.
Yeah.
And then recently I just got the urge to see if I could still do it at all.
Yeah.
And I've been using it for some just recording projects recently.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you also have been in a lot of like original bands, correct?
Yeah. So I ended up switching to guitar at some point when I was a teenager, and like probably when I was like 12.
Yeah.
And I've been playing guitar ever since. And
very cool.
Writing songs, and I have one band I've been in since 1999.
Is that Second Story Man?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one that Sina was always telling me about. She was like, you need, because we had her house, we turned it into the band practice house. So there were like 3 or 4 different band friends. We all lived there. And it basically was the creative house, you know what I mean? And as you've been in it, it is kind of a super creative house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. I love that little place. Yeah. So, well, that's cool. I want to talk to you a lot about the writing process, the artistic process, which is my favorite part of music.
Same.
I use my own music for my own therapy. I never really ever made music for anybody else other than me, or to sell it or any of that. I literally just have always loved to produce and write and just be part of the creative process of putting out your own records and your band records and writing with other people. I do feel like that music is all about the collaboration. And I've had many older folks who are very successful in music tell me the same thing. It's all about who you collab with. And if you think about it, it makes sense because, you know, when they were trying to break hip-hop, you had Aerosmith, who was number 1 at the charts, and then they were like, hey, let's put this Run DMC cats with them.
That's one of the best.
And then, boom, we have Walk This Way. It was all about the collab. And then even I used Cardi B a lot as an example, too. we wouldn't have had a Cardi B. When they're trying to break her, they put her with the number one guy at the time, which is Bruno Mars, who had the number one song at the time. And then boom, they put out a song together. Everybody starts paying attention to her. And then next thing you know, we have Cardi B. You see what I'm saying? So I do believe it's all about the collaboration in music and writing with other people. And, I use it as a form of expression, as a form of therapy. So I want to talk a little bit about the writing process that you go through. Do you write the same way every time, or are you always searching for different ways to write?
I'd say it depends on the person or people I'm collaborating with.
Yeah. And do you always collaborate?
I love collaborating.
Me too.
I don't really do that much solo kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've always played with a band. I'm also a visual artist, and so a lot of that is work that I do on my own, but I'm also exploring ways to collaborate with that right now.
Yeah.
I'd say my favorite way to collaborate right now with Second Story Man is we've been doing lots of jams and writing songs that have come out of that. In the past, the past there were always 3 or 4 songwriters in the band, and so all of us would come in with either a fully finished song or several parts, and we'd work them out together. And we're sort of moving more towards spontaneity.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's been really magical. I love doing that.
Before our show, I was telling you all about my friend Beverly McClellan, who I just lost, who we had a magical, soul connection writing-wise. It was just that. It was like I'd met my soulmate, you know what I mean? And she agreed. And it was never a romantic relationship. It was always a creative relationship. But, man, we just had that spark. So to lose her was a big deal. She was a huge believer in the process of spontaneity. She never gave me a set list ever. She loved to go on the fly, and she was like, just follow me. That's all you got to do. And if I want you to do a solo, go to a solo. And I was just I never had a clue what was going to happen, but it was always magic, and we used the exact same process in the writing. A lot of times when I'm recording other people or even doing my own stuff, which has just been of recently me trying to do my own stuff, I sometimes will just let a song happen. I'll go back and go, oh, I like this beat. I'm going to sing this over top of it, and I'll put some lyrics to it, and they'll go back and go, I don't like that, and I like this, and sometimes if there's random stuff that's captured in the background, I just let it be because
that's the best part.
I love the magic of just whatever happens, and it sometimes I've even found random vocal tracks where I went back and tried to figure out where they were coming from and couldn't, but then just left them in, so spontaneity, I feel like, is definitely the way to go.
Well, and sometimes when you're recording, there can be a tendency to try to do a certain vocal line 300 times because that's not perfect.
Right.
But sometimes having a little bit of vulnerability in the way that, a line comes out is really the best option, leaving some of those quote-unquote mistakes.
Yeah. Or I call them happy accidents.
Yeah.
The Stones would do that a lot, too. They would just happy accidents. Sometimes you'll hear a weird, random note and that doesn't quite fit or might clash, and they were like, no,
and
let's
that's
just
the best
leave it
part.
in. Right, exactly. I love that. When you go about, let's say you're writing just a specific song, do you usually come up with melody lines first? I know you said you jam a lot, but do you, when you come up with ideas, does it just hit you lyrically, or does it hit you on a melody level or rhythm level?
It's almost always melody, sometimes rhythm, sometimes a groove.
Yeah.
Usually I'll make up some kind of, placeholder words.
Yeah.
And then later on, if I'm doing something with lyrics, we'll go back and think about those later.
Interesting. Yeah. And how many records have you put out, do you guess?
Oh, wow. I think Second Story Man's done maybe 5.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
Julie the Wolves did 1. I was in a band called Minnow that did a couple.
Minnow? I love that. Yeah. Great name. Minnow Man. That's super cool. And what style would you consider Second Story Man and Julie of the Wolves?
I mean,
rock.
Yeah, rock.
Yeah, I love rock and roll too.
Yeah.
Were you always influenced by rock? I know you said you were influenced by classical, obviously.
Yeah, mostly classical, and I started going to all ages punk shows in the early 90s, like lots of local shows here in Louisville, so that was, it was a really exciting time, and that was huge for me.
Yeah, I bet.
And so, I saw all this creativity, and at the time, I don't know, there were lots of... there's a lot of variety of different kinds of sounds happening, and everyone was trying to do something totally different and unique. And so that was a very inspiring kind of thing to grow up with.
Yeah, I bet. I was going to say, that's the awesome part of Louisville. It's so creative here. And that's why, honestly, I stay around, because I don't have family here, but I just love the community of Louisville. It's just so magnetic. The Highlands just keeps me there. I don't know why, but I just cannot escape that area, or Louisville in general.
Yeah, I've been trying to maybe leave before, but it's just never happened.
I know. And
Born and raised, gonna probably be here forever.
Right, I hear you. Most people that have lived here and then moved away always move back too.
Yep.
I've noticed that. They always come back. I think it's just because Louisville is such a creative, cool. We've got our little niche here, and it's just
cost of living is good.
Cost of living is great. I mean, if I can be a female drummer professionally and make money and live okay for the past 10 years, it's pretty awesome. Because that's incredibly hard to do.
You've carved out a pretty awesome niche for yourself.
I try.
Yeah.
I mean, and honestly, I haven't. Well, I will say this: I haven't even really tried that hard. I've just always wanted to make music and play music. That was it. And I just kind of always followed my heart, and never married, no kids, so I never had anything to hold me back to do that. And I kind of chose that lifestyle, and I feel like, I love to travel and I love to play music. That's all I ever wanted to do since I was a kid. So I feel like I've done that, and I'm going to keep doing that, because as long as I can, physically at least. But yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. I like also when you're talking about like the different stuff, when I did some like country records, rock records, punk. You talked about punk being an influence. I was heavily influenced by punk music too. And I feel like that comes across in my music because I'm a little punkish sometimes, But I always loved that style because you could literally just say whatever you think, And I felt like it was like, wow, we come up in the time of Joan Jett, not giving a damn about her bad reputation and writing all these like punk kind of, I consider her punk-ish, even though, probably rock and roll and pop. But also that 90s like female angst music. I mean, we love a female artist when she's like, rah, you know what I mean? When Alanis was like giving it to him on Jagged Little Pill, and Tracy Bonham's over there screaming at her mom.
Bikini Kill was my jam.
Yes, yeah. Bikini Kill. Who was in Bikini Kill?
Kathleen Hanna, Toby Vale.
Yeah. And a lot of them went on to do some Mishfest stuff, which is where I ended up meeting Beverly McClellan, which was really interesting. It was a Michigan Women's Music Festival. It ran for like 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
So they're toward the end of that festival, which it's now, it's no more now. But I got to play like the last 4 years as the house drummer there. And that's where I met Bev. She was performing one day. I met her on stage, which was kind of crazy, along with all kinds of other amazing artists. Julie Wolfe got me there, and then, it just went from there. And it was so magical to me to be around all those women. In fact, that was the first time I think I remember going, women need to rule the world. And I can understand now why. Because it was a women-run festival. And I had been to Bonnaroo's and, Four Castles and all these other, like, music festivals around. And, the bathrooms they smelled like roses every day. They cooked meals for you. They fed you every day. There was health care, booths there. And you didn't have to pay for anything. I mean, you had to pay to get in the festival, but once you're in, they feed you and everything, take care of you. There was even like childcare. Everybody there volunteered time to do something to help everything else. So if you wanted free massages, you could go get free massages. You know what I mean? It was so cool. It was such an amazing experience. And the most profound thing that happened was I remember looking down and somebody had dropped a $20 bill and they had written under a rock, it said, somebody dropped this $20 bill. If this is yours, please take it. Right? And they just set a rock on top of it. And that $20 bill stayed there all week.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. And that's when I was like, wow. women should rule the world. They really should, you know. But to meet all those women musicians from all around the country and the world, even there were people from France that would fly into that thing. You know, it's really cool, and it went on to run for I think 40-something years.
Well, when you have something, you know, that everyone believes in and comes together for people become their best selves, I think.
Yes, they do. I agree. And let's talk a little bit about that because you do exactly that with the Girls Rock Louisville. I was not really hip to Girls Rock Louisville until just recently, although I don't know how because all of my friends are involved in it. But what made you want to start that nonprofit?
Well, it wasn't just me. There were a number of us who worked on it together collectively.
Yeah.
The idea for it started, my bandmate in the band Julie of the Wolves, Stephanie Gary. She and I had an idea that, let's try to do a festival, maybe just in the park or something like that. And because we'd started playing out with our band Julie of the Wolves, and all of a sudden we realized that there were a lot of other bands in town with women, and both of us had been playing for years, and it felt like there weren't so many of us, or we were kind of isolated and didn't know each other.
Right.
And so we were just like, it feels so good to play shows with other women in town.
Yeah.
And so we were like, let's just do a whole weekend festival of it. And then the idea kind of spun out of control. That's kind of how I work. I kind of spin ideas out of control.
Understood.
Take them
Same.
too much. So anyway, we realized we'd created this 3-day music festival that was going to be all ages, but we wanted to do something that would serve youth and not just cater to adults.
Love that.
And so we started off by adding this mini camp that we called our rock shops. And we had 40 kids the first year, and we had about, I think it was like 15 adult mentors who were working with them.
That's a lot. 40,
yeah.
You start out with 40?
We started out with 40.
That's a lot of kids.
It was a lot, and we were running a music festival at night and working with kids during the mornings and afternoons, so it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was...
And then tell me a little bit about the process of that. Like, once you get the kids in there and you've got the mentors, then what happens?
Well, we had instrument instruction in the morning. The other thing was they didn't have to have any experience.
I love that.
So, but by the end of the second day, they were going to play a show. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. So they had instruction in the morning that was not like how to be a virtuoso instrumentalist or vocalist or whatever, but how you can just use what you have as a tool to express yourself.
Yeah.
So they had instrument lesson in the morning, and then formed the bands in the afternoon and just kind of gave them unlimited freedom, like, what do you want to make?
Yeah.
And then they had mentors there to sort of help them work through things but not be too intrusive.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. They pulled it off the first year, and they wrote these incredible, beautiful songs.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like a pressure cooker situation like
I
that.
agree.
To make people really come together and do something they didn't know they could do.
Right.
So,
and talk about confidence. That's the one thing that I see in my students that I love to give them is, you know, they may be kind of the weird kids, the creative kids at school, and then they start playing drums or taking lessons. And then I love it when they get to go to school and play, because then they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, everybody in the school talked to me that doesn't usually. And, you know, they just gain this confidence. It's amazing what music can do.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the adults felt like that too, because it was like, this is an almost impossible task. How are we going to pull this off? We all pulled it off, and it was one of the greatest moments of my life when we had the showcase and it worked.
Yeah.
And so after that moment, there was just... we were like, well, we have to keep doing this.
Yes.
And then we found this entire worldwide network of women and trans and non-binary artists who were doing this already as week-long camps or year-round camps and year-round programs. And so in 2016, we held our first week-long camp, and not only had the music component, but we brought in social justice workshops. Cool. We brought in lunchtime performers every day. It's a very intense experience. We ended up, I think, we kept the number of 40 campers and then had at least 30 adults by 2016. And this past year, we had 50 campers, 4 interns, and 70 volunteers.
Wow. I'm
So
like,
it's
how
a
do you
major
keep up
production.
with that? Yeah, I was going to say, how big is your personal team working on this? Or is it's
well,
not just you, right?
Oh,
Just,
God, no.
I was going to say,
There's
how do
no
you
way.
keep up with all that?
No.
Yeah.
We have we have a board of directors that
Perfect.
oversee the organization, and then we have a programming team. Our music director is Meg Samples, who's also a phenomenal
I need to get
drummer.
her in here. Yes, I know. We just had Todd Hildreth in last week.
Yeah, they're bandmates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Squeezebud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Meg's been with us from the beginning.
Right.
And is a huge part of the organization.
Awesome.
And, we have Kelly Weaver doing workshops, and we've had Jordan Martin working with like our counseling and feelings team, we call it.
I love that.
And Jerica Jones has been doing a whole lot of stuff with us too. So we've had a lot of people doing different aspects of things. We have a whole fundraising team. We have a communications team. And then we do programs year-round in the community where we bring a condensed version of summer camp into spaces like Maryhurst or La Casita Center, Louisville Free Public Libraries.
Yeah, super
So on.
cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Very awesome. Well, I also love that I talk very openly about being, non-binary myself and being a part of the LGBTQAI plus community here. They're part of the reason I'm still here, so I love that you're doing that and creating a safe space. I talk often about the need of safe spaces still today.
Yes.
I myself find myself very uncomfortable sometimes at certain places. So I have my own little safe spaces around town, and they're usually owned by LGBTQAI plus positive thinking people. So I love that you're creating that for young kids because they needed that. They need that. I didn't have that growing up, and I really wish I had of,
Oh.
Yeah.
I think we all, with Girls Rock, are seeking things that we wish we'd had when we were younger.
Right. That's amazing. Well, kudos to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I know. Oh, I was like, I need to have my, I've got walrus sound effects. Have you ever heard of a walrus, like, doing its mating calls and stuff?
No, but let's do it.
All right, here it is.
Wow,
It's
that's a
very
really
interesting,
beautiful
right?
percussion sound,
I know.
actually.
Here's some more. I'm going to give you a couple more. You got to love walrus sounds.
You could make a whole rhythm track out of that. That'd be really great.
Yeah, let's hear one more.
Okay.
Whistles. That's wild, isn't it? Yeah, that sounds like something Missy Elliott would use in one of her
Oh,
tracks,
yeah.
like in the background. They'll mix it in somewhere. Go, you're right on that. Oh yeah. Well, kudos to you for all the good, awesome things you do around Louisville.
Well, likewise.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we finally got you money for the She Castle thing.
Yes, that was such a cool event. You all did such a beautiful
Yeah.
job with that.
Just the idea, we were talking about Michigan Women's Music Festival, and I was saying that that's where I met Bev. And so once we did that, we went on to play a lot of women's music festivals and pride events. That was kind of her scene. And we just did it as a duo. And like I said, no set list ever. So I never knew what was going on. And there's a lot of videos and stuff floating out there. But when I met her, I thought, she loved the women's music scene. She was also LGBTQAI+. We both grew up in very similar backgrounds. Both ended up in LA doing music and then meet on stage, and went on to write a bunch of stuff together. The whole Hillbilly Swagger record. And then, of course, I'm still releasing stuff of hers. We're going to actually spin a track later on that we played at her Lifetime celebration, which was in April. So I thought, what could I do for her here to celebrate? Because they were doing all these events all over different states because she had toured so much. And I was like, man, she wrote most of her music right here in the Highlands, and we produced it right here in Louisville. So what can I do? And, I was like, let's put an all-female band together and have female singers rotating out just like we did at Mishfest, how I met her. And she loved to play for a good charity, so she would have loved Girls Rock Louisville and that program. You know what I mean? She loved to
sounds
play
like
for
an incredible
kids.
person.
She really was. She really was. And just to sit in a room with her in my kitchen and just have her pick a guitar and sing like Neil Young's "Oh Man, Take a Look at My Life," or she was so great on the fly of just coming up with lyrics, and we loved to sit and do that, talking about the spontaneity. We would just sit and she'd be like, go, sing something, go, and just force you to do it. And like you said, sometimes out of that spontaneity, you get the most amazing results,
Yeah.
So she loved to play for kids. She loved kids. And that's why I was like, let's do this. And also, I thought it'd be really cool to do all female produced, you know, because I was like, we have so many awesome females here in Louisville, Kentucky that play music that don't ever really get to network with each other or collab with each other. And going back to the awesome, you know, it's all about the collab. You know, I just found these awesome players, and a lot of them, like Selena was mostly in the, you know, my bass player was in the, like the cover or the original music scene, not so much the cover band scene, where Donna came from like the cover band scene, and then Jess, our pianist, came from the theater scene. They had never even met each other until we played together, you know, and I was just looking for players that really could like get every style of music, because we wanted to be able to allow the singers to do whatever they wanted. So the singers really got to pick any song they wanted, and then go from there with their own style. So that was just a really cool idea, and I thought Bev would really appreciate that, you know.
Well, the music was awesome, and I think what I appreciated about it so much, too, is it was really multi-generational.
Yes.
And it was really diverse, and you had people, like you said, coming from all different scenes and
musical backgrounds.
And experience, and you know, there's nothing like bringing a bunch of people together to work on a project, and you get to really spend that time together where you're working on something that's like, I don't know, towards a common goal.
Yes, exactly.
And that's when magic happens.
You're right. And that's why I love like theater so much, because you have so many people working toward one main goal, and that's to make that show the best possible show ever.
Right. It's bigger than any one individual. It's about what can we all do together.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we're going to take a break, Miss Carrie Neumayer, and I'm going to spin a song that I released since it is my birthday. I decided to release a track of Bev's that had never been heard before other than her Lifetime celebration, and it's called Beautiful Day. And I have no idea any of the history about this. I barely even remember recording it. So I went back and found it and released it today to everybody out there listening. So here it is. It's Beverly McClellan with Beautiful Day on LRS102.com.
Turn it down, that racket is too loud. I feel it in my head. Oh, I remember, that day we met. It was racket is too loud. I don't care about it. Don't care that much about it. I don't think about it. I hardly think about it. All the pretty ones, all the pretty ones, all the pretty ones and all their pretty things. Don't make me want it. Don't make me want it. Don't make me want it. All the shit it brings. But the pretty ones, yeah, the pretty ones, all the pretty ones have the song they sing so loudly. I can never kiss them, I may be. Yes, it's so deep. It's the only place where they can scream. I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't care. No, I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't care. It's time to think about it for just a little bit. Maybe you care about it. You just might give a shit. Don't be a blank slate. You can't make a case for taking up the space with all your pretty things. Just 'cause you want it, don't mean you want it. Still be haunted about all the shit it brings. But the pretty ones, yeah, the pretty ones, all the pretty ones and the songs they sing so loudly. Like they never kissed them on maybe. Yes, it's so deep. It's the only place where they can scream. I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't care. No, I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't Create, destroy the apathy. Create, my heart destroys apathy. Your heart destroys apathy. My heart destroys apathy. Your heart destroys apathy. Our heart destroys apathy. Our heart destroys apathy. Our heart destroys apathy. Art destroys apathy. Art destroys apathy. Art destroys apathy.
I love it. It's Julie of the Wolves, and that is Create and Destroy. And we are joined by the lovely Carrie Neumayer. How are you doing, Miss Carrie?
I'm doing great, and I'm enjoying celebrating your birthday with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming in today. I love that. That is the whole
Thanks.
record, that kind of style.
Yeah. So that was a song written by Stephanie Gary, who is one of my bandmates in Julie the Wolves, and we both sort of wrote songs collaboratively, and I
love
contribute
that.
about half, and she did about half.
Yeah, it's super punk rocky. But I know you get compared to Sleater Kinney a lot, but
Yeah.
I can very much so hear Sleater Kinney in there. Is it a 3-piece?
That band, well, we aren't active anymore.
okay, got it.
But there were 4 of us.
Okay.
Our drummer moved to North Carolina.
Okay.
And Selena, is playing with
Killy Killies
and a
and
number of different projects.
Yeah, they
And
have
then
a gig coming up.
Stephanie and I are actually playing some music together right now.
I love
A new
that.
project, which is exciting.
Well, very, very, very cool. I love that project. And before that, you heard Miss Beverly McClellan with Beautiful Day. So I was trying to think what we were just talking about, the artistic section of how music is so awesome because you can literally just do and say anything you want in it. And I'll never forget taking a piano lesson or two here and there and going, hey, I kind of like it when C and C sharp are together, even though it makes this weird clash, And I was like, I guess you couldn't ever use that. And my piano instructor was like, yeah, you can. You can do anything you want. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to think. Like, you have 12 notes. You can do literally anything you want with them when you're writing original stuff, which made me go, wow, really? Okay, well, oh, yeah. And then come to find out that pattern was in, The Legend of Zelda in, one of the boss scenes. They made it because it sounds
pretty
really
cool.
intense.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I was like, oh. It kind of blew my mind when I finally realized that literally anything goes when you're writing your own stuff. I was just the other night, I'm about to put out, I've been working on a solo record for a long time. I'm about to put out, I like to drop singles along the way. And so I was thinking the other night, I was like, man, it'd be really cool. This song's in a major key if it was in a minor key, because it'd make it sound creepier, you know? And then I was like, that'd be weird, though, to start it in a minor key and then go into a major. And then I was like, but I can, because it's original. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love to
You
write.
can break the rules. It's
Yeah, and that's what's so cool too. Going back to punk rock is, you know, it was all about breaking the rules. You know what I mean? And what style of punk rock were you a big fan of? Were you across the board? Because there's a difference, I feel like, in like California punk and New York punk and like European punk. You know what I mean? There are bands of each that were all amazing.
I really liked a lot of the DC scene that was happening in the late 80s, the early 90s, all the Discord record stuff. I really loved all the Kill Rock Stars stuff from the Northwest.
Yeah,
and
cool.
then, of course, the Louisville kind of indie scene here.
Yeah.
You know, the band that was most important to me that I saw when I was younger was Rodan.
Okay.
They had a huge impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love to draw influence from lots of different things. You've got a very eclectic mix of music that you really pull from, it sounds like.
Well, you know, my tastes have expanded and changed a lot as I've gotten older. And I mean, I still listen to punk rock, but I listen to a lot of jazz and soul.
Yeah, I love jazz.
And experimental stuff. I've been really into, like, I don't know, a lot of jazz lately.
I've been really into jazz too. I grew up playing jazz because our marching. Okay, so where I'm from, Adair County, the marching band was more important than any of the sports.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. It's like, and it still is, because the Adair County marching band was like historic, you know, or historic, as I like to say, because they had won state since like the 50s. So if you had parents that were in the marching band, then they expected their kids to be in the marching band. They want their kids to be in the marching band. It's like a tradition where I'm from. So my father was in the marching band, and I started really young, you know, and we also did concert band. Well, I didn't play drums right away. I actually played clarinet and bass clarinet and like some sax in college and stuff like that. But I was in charge of the pit a lot of times when I was, you know, in marching band. So all the big stuff, the timpanis and the marimbas and then, you know, the drum set. And we always did jazz stuff because my professor was huge into progressive jazz. So we were always playing that style, which was kind of an interesting thing. But I didn't do it on drum set, which was interesting, right? I did it on other instruments. So it was interesting to kind of fall away from that. And then, of course, being surrounded in a very country town, I was very influenced by classic old country, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, even the older stuff, Waylon Jennings, all the way back to like Loretta. I love Fist City. In fact, some of my favorite moments at working in classic old country radio involve Loretta Lynn.
I love her.
Yeah, people used to call in and be like, I want to dedicate that. You know, it was an all request call in show. So they would call in and be like, I want to request Fist City going out to you know, Joe Bob from Jim Joe or whatever, you know, and I'd be like, all right, here you are, Fist City. But I'm a huge fan of them. Barbara Mandrell, Ronnie Millsap, like that old kind of stuff. And even, I know
like
that's not totally old, but it's 80s, like 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s country, even back into the country western stuff prior to that, the Marty Robbins, and I was a huge Charlie Pride fan, you know, I just love all that old classic stuff.
You're gonna have to give me some recommendations. I like all that stuff.
Yeah,
too.
me too. Absolutely will. And my knowledge for that is crazy because I did work in country, classic old country radio, and I grew up playing like steel guitar conventions and stuff.
Oh wow,
like,
that's really cool.
as a guitar or as a drummer, they would just, my dad was a drummer, so he put me on a kit when I was very young. He handed me, you know, drumsticks at like 3. And I would play these cool little steel guitar conventions. Steve Warner, who's a famous writer in country music and has had a ton of hits, was from my hometown. So his family owned the only little music store anywhere around in South Central Kentucky. It's still there. And so they would have steel guitar conventions from all these steel guitarists would come in from all over the world.
Do they still do it?
I don't know because the guy who hosted it passed away. His name was Beckham Collins. He was Steve Warner's steel guitar player, and he's the one who owned the music shop. But they would want to go party, so they would put me as a kid up on the drum set and be like, just play a shuffle as long as you can go. See you in a bit, you know. And then I'd be like, yeah. So steel
cool.
guitar conventions, stuff like that. Meanwhile, you know, I started my first garage band when I was like 13. You know, we'd practice in my dad's garage and
Like a rock band?
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like rockish. We tried to be rock. I don't know what we were. But, my dad was heavily influenced by, Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd and all those early bands, Allman Brothers. And what was cool about him, though, is he never ever limited anything that I listened to. And my mom didn't either. And I love my parents for this. When CDs first came out, we would go and he would buy every CD and we would just listen to music. It didn't matter what it was. So I had like a Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, yeah.
I had Debrat. I had all that early Grandmaster Flash. Even, and it'd be like that to the Grateful Dead to like classical stuff to whatever. It was just all across the board. My mom loved all the pop, easily listening like Rod Stewart and Billy Joel and Bob Seger and, that kind of stuff. Which I grew up loving, But I love all styles of music. I really do. I don't judge because I feel like as a music teacher, music can teach you so much. It's
100%.
Every song can teach you something that you don't know or haven't played before. So even if you don't like country, you might need to know how to do like a shuffle or a train beat, something that's in that style of music that you wouldn't do. A lot of times when you're writing too, I always say this to other people, if your stuff sounds the same, then change up your grooves because there's so many like template grooves. If you're used to writing in 4/4 all the time, we'll try like say like a train beat with it.
I had this thing that I did for a while. I had a list and I had two sides where it had several different options. One would be like it would have a time signature and the other thing would have like just a random word and I would have to pick one from each column.
Ooh, I love that.
And then have
and
to
then
create
write around
something.
it. Ooh,
Yeah,
great
just
idea.
kind of like a songwriting game.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
It was a helpful thing.
Well, the record I did before Hillbilly Swagger, the first record I really produced by myself was called Welcome to the Queendom. And it was we had a duo named Femtronica. And it was a chick who was a Juilliard opera vocal grad who lived in Arkansas. And she wanted to do an electronic hip hop record. And I said, that sounds amazing because she was mostly opera, right? But she had this big
That sounds
vocal.
great.
It was, yeah. I actually hired Janine Barnhart, did all the artwork for it. You'll love that since you're an artist. And it's a queen sitting on a throne of claws and teeth rising up. And we recorded it on the lunar blood moon. A lot of it. So it's got the lunar blood moon behind her, and we tie in the eclipses and all this cool stuff into it. Yeah.
Sounds
but
epic.
It was. And I was really, honestly, that record is where I was coming out in my music. Like I was coming out in my lyrics, just talking openly about being non-binary and everything like that. But we had this not similar to your game, we had this group that we were involved in where they would give you 2 prompts and then you had 2 weeks to write and produce something and then submit it to them. And, there's like 50 people in this group. And, the prompts could be anything. It was like, today you have to write a song that involves something about the universe, and then your musical prompt is use F sharp somewhere or something like that. And so then we would be like, oh, it puts you on your toes to come up with something quickly. Like you said, spontaneity quickly. A lot of times when I do best under pressure, I always have. You know what I mean? That's where I feel like I perform my best. If the pressure's on, I'm going to try to, rise above and do it. But yeah, that really made me like work really hard. And we were writing about things like one day it was, you have to write about GPS. And so we wrote this song called Yes, Yes, GPS. And it was and it's all about Siri and your iPhone taking you to different locations or like cow fields instead of where you're supposed to be. And I had sampled Siri, all these like her saying all these weird things, and then we put like speaking spells and I used a dial-up modem sound in there. I tried to use like all these like weird electronic sounds that kids have not heard today. Even the telephone one that was like, we're sorry, the number you have reached is no longer in service. Like they don't even know what that is, or a dial-up modem sound. Which is a really weird, interesting sound, kind of like a fax machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that whole process of, the game sounds fun. I would be like, you call me to do that, I'd be over in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
to write a song.
I like things that have to do with like chance.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And
yeah.
sort of relinquishing some control.
Yeah. I like
just
that. Yeah.
Having to work with what you got.
Yeah. I'll get you a copy of that record, by the way, because I think you would really dig it. It's a very feminist record, and we wrote most of it while I was in L.A., and it was recorded in 3 different states, and there was only 1 week out of the entire year that we wrote it that we were in the same room together doing it. We literally were doing it from 2 different states. So it was a kind of a fascinating project. But nowadays with our recording gear and stuff, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can collaborate
With
remotely.
anybody all over the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
it's awesome.
crazy. So what influenced this record here that we heard on Bandcamp, the Julie and the Wolves
Julie of the
record?
Wolves,
Julie of the Wolves.
I mean, just the 4 of us being in a room together, I'd
Yeah.
say our friendship, gosh, a lot of different things. I mean, every song is its own world.
I know.
think.
It's like, I call them babies. They're like
Yeah.
your babies. You're birthing a baby.
I
you
always
know?
really liked the title track that we just listened to, Create, Destroy. Stephanie wrote that one, and she has this great line in it that at the end it says, my art destroys apathy, your art destroys apathy, our art destroys apathy. And that's like, I think one of my favorite
great.
lines in the whole thing. And I mean, that's sort of my philosophy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I always say music is the healing force of the universe. It really is. you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah.
art can destroy lots of things and bring awareness to lots of things too.
Yeah.
What
I
is
still
that?
believe in it. We wrote that album in, I think it was 2014. And,
Yeah.
You know.
And what are you working on right now? What do you got going on currently?
Well, let's see. I'm still playing with Second Story Man.
Cool.
We have a new album in the works that we're all really excited
Sweet.
about. So that's a lot of fun. I'm working on a new project with Stephanie that I'm going to wait because it's kind of her baby
Sure.
to talk much about. I'm doing some soundtrack collaborations right now with a friend.
That's cool. I
yeah.
love a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing musically, and I'm doing a bunch of visual art stuff, and I don't know. I'm
Yeah, your
having a real
visual
creative
art-
time right now, so that's
Yeah.
it's been pretty great.
It's a creative moment, I feel like. I kind of went for a dry spell there for a little while. I feel like just with all the losses that was going on in my life, it's very hard to get over that. But when I'm sad is when I tend to write the most. So the past year and a half, I've been writing crazy fool,
Yeah.
literally just churning out crazy stuff. And then I'll go back. Sometimes I was going to ask you about this. Does things just come to you lyrically? Does it
Yes.
pop? Okay. Because sometimes I literally will get up in the middle of the night, just can't sleep. And then I'll sit at my computer and then I'll start writing. And then things will just flood out. And then I'll go back and listen the next day or read the next day and be like, whoa, where did that all come from? You know what I mean? Sometimes my hands move so fast, I don't even process what's coming through. And then I'll go back and be like, wow, that's intense. You know?
I do a lot of driving around and walking around by myself, and
Same.
sometimes I'll have I'll come up with ideas when I'm doing that, when I'm not fidgeting with my phone or
Yeah.
attention being taken in some other direction, when I'm
Yeah.
actually just focused on what's around me. That's generally when I come up with ideas.
Yeah. Do you use your notes in your phone to write ideas down?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah. Me and Jackson Swain did this little game where he was in here last week, Friday the 13th. We did this little game where we pulled up our phone notes and he read some of the things because we were talking about how we just think ideas hit you and then you write them in your notes and then you go back and access them later on. And I was like, ooh, let's play this little game.
Yeah.
So we went through and ooh, what do you have in your notes? And I was reading some of mine being like, yeah, some of these are horrible.
Yeah.
But some,
But that's okay. It's like a
Yeah.
sketchbook or something.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I love that. I also use the little audio things too.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be driving and be like, oh, it just hit me. This needs to be a hook. And then, okay, perfect. Now back to whatever.
I've started sampling sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
When I'm around somewhere and I'm like, ooh, that's
Yeah.
all these.
Do you ever use electronics in any of your stuff or is it always live instrumentation?
Always live instrumentation, but with Girls Rock, we just did this collaboration with Rhythm Science Sound. I don't know if you know
no.
them. They're
Hit me to them.
they're super awesome. We actually share an office with them, and
Okay.
they do digital music making, lots of
Cool.
workshops, work with lots of different populations, and they actually just did the music and worked with Actors Theater for the new production of Hype Man.
I love that.
They're awesome. You should check them out.
I will. One more time on the name.
Rhythm Science Sound.
Cool.
But so we did this project with them called Sample Here, where we had analog musicians go into La La Land recording studio and we all did some jams, and then they sampled what we were doing, and they're going to be creating a sampler pack
Oh, I love that.
from that's going to be
Cool.
available to local producers or anyone who works digitally to encourage
Yeah.
people to sample here
Yeah,
in Louisville.
that'd
rather
be
than
like me
elsewhere.
because I buy sample packs all the time.
Yeah, well, you have to get the GRL one.
I
It's gonna be
totally
cool.
will. That's super rad. I did not know that. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's all Rhythm Science Sounds
Yeah.
idea. We were just excited to go.
Yeah.
Be a
I'm
part
like
of it.
you when it comes to all those weird sample and things like that. I'm like that weirdo that will be in the yard at like 4 a.m. recording crickets
Totally.
and stuff
Yeah.
because I just love to record audio.
Yeah.
And go, let's make that into, and I of course love percussion stuff. So, I'm always taking triangles or anything that you can beat that makes sound. One time we sampled like a paint can ball.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
that's a good
weird.
one.
Yeah, just weird. I can't even think.
I sampled some scissors the other night for a
Oh,
thing.
I love
Yeah.
that. Zippers are always really cool too,
Ooh.
like those sounds.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. It's kind of weird though to record.
Yeah.
You're like trying to hold the pants and zip, 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 But yeah, I love any of that stuff. And I think it's really cool. It goes back to some of that early hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
So I've always been heavily influenced by electronic music. I don't know if it was because I was an LGBT kid that loved the club scene or just, I always loved to go dancing and just feel that music like vibrating through your soul.
Yeah.
And of course, I've always played live music with multiple different bands and groups. But at the same time, when it comes to producing and writing, I find, even on Hillbilly Swagger, we use like a 62 Farfisa with like iPads and beats and things like that
Oh,
we had
sweet.
made and programmed just to see what the clash sounded like, something old school with something new school that you usually don't use. And we talked about that with Todd Hildreth. He said, the way he came up with Squeezebot was that, he had an accordion. He thought he put a banjo to it, which seemed like two unlikely instruments to be in a band together. And then he was talking about the toy drum set. Somebody just happened to hit the toy drum set one day, and they were like, ooh, yeah, we want that in our band.
I love that.
Me too.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. And I love the idea of, again, the collab, the clash, all of that, any kind of interesting instruments coming together, and whatnot, and sampling weird things. And nowadays with, these little computers that we hold in our hands every day, you can literally download apps and get all kinds of weird things. You can buy a theremin on there if you want or whatever. They make an app for literally everything.
I'm really wanting to get more into like learning how to do some simple recording and I don't know. I'm not super tech savvy, but yeah.
Well, I don't know a ton, but from working, I've got 17, almost 18 years now under my belt working in radio and television. In radio, I used to have to do these things where I had to record my voice and send it out to like 10 different radio stations a day. And I kept going, man, how can I use this in my music? And then I get the program and try it at home at night, Working with the vocals have always kind of been my thing because, I was mainly recording those. In television, I was an on-air director for the WB. So it was back when Dawson's Creek and Buffy and all those shows were really popular. I was putting those on behind the scenes here for Louisville people to watch at home. So it was a really cool job, and I got to learn a lot about video editing there. And I've always done music videos as well as, me and Bev would make sock puppets and make, a song about puppet, about socks.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't know have you ever seen that one yet? It's
guess
called
not.
Clean Socks.
Uh-huh.
And it tells this funny story about sock puppets. We had this really bizarre moment in our life that involved a girl. And we thought, well, we can't speak publicly on this, but what can we do? We'll put it in our arts and we'll make sock puppets. And the whole video is about wearing clean socks. Don't be the dirty sock, be the clean sock, And for $100, we made this amazing video, and everything's on a miniature scale. So it's like we made these little like microphones and little disco balls, and
that sounds super fun.
yeah, we made ourselves as puppets, and they're rapping in the video, and it's just I'll send that to you later.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
called Clean Socks. Yeah,
love to see it.
My YouTube is off the charts with like crazy videos and stuff. But just again, being creative. I feel like if kids today, and you're offering them this, if kids in these schools today had an outlet like music to go home and write a song about something that hurt their feelings rather than get their hands on a handgun, I feel like that there would be a lot less violence in this world, because kids, I feel like not only kids, but adults too, because I'm one of them, who just needs to get that emotion out of them, and there's no way to get it out, but through arts. So
getting emotion out and also feeling like you have, I think within a band, people who trust you and believe in you and support you, and you're not just doing it alone, but you have this group of people
support system
and who understand you in this unique way. I mean, the creative collaboration is unlike any other sort of relationship,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Where I come from, bands have always been your family.
Absolutely. Yeah. My bandmates in Second Story Man are my brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course me, not to go back to Downer, but I just lost 2 of my family members, I call them, because, not only Bev, but I also lost my bass player of 12 years, Sue Riley.
I'm so sorry.
So, yeah, she was in a car wreck about 3 weeks ago. So, just had to deal with that. And that was my primary bass player for a long time, in multiple different projects. She played with Robbie Bartlett, the Troubadours of Divine Bliss. We had a band called Ma'am Overboard together. So, it's like, man, when they're your family members and you're like, oh, and like you were saying, your bands are your family.
Yeah.
And they're family for life.
Yeah.
So... rest in peace, both of them, because they were amazing musicians and, and definitely did some awesome things for this world, Right. So anyway, Miss Carrie, it's been awesome having you on the show
thanks
today.
So much.
Do you have any shows or anything that you want to promote, or websites, or have we left anything out?
I don't have any shows right now.
Okay, that's
hopefully
okay.
Sometime soon.
Actually, the reason I wanted to have you in was mostly for not only Girls Rock Louisville and to thank you for all that, but also to talk about the creative stuff, because you're super creative and I love that.
Oh, well, I've really enjoyed getting to talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can talk about that any day of the week. So anytime you want to come back on LRS, you are welcome on our show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and happy birthday again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna spin some cars in memory of Rick Ocasek, who just passed away. It is My Best Friend's Girl on LRS102.com.